Hello. Today's video, perpetual motion for everyone. Now this is going to be the less popular perpetual motion system. First we need to talk about what we mean by perpetual motion, because perpetual motion can have a very unrealistic definition, which is not what any inventor that I've ever spoken to means. They have their own version of the definition. So there's this like what I'll call absolute perfection of perpetual motion, and then there's actual perpetual motion. So actual and practical perpetual motion for everyone is where I think what everyone wants is to be able to have basically a range extender that can extend the range of maybe an electric vehicle or a light bulb or an electric bicycle, something that gets us from point A to point B and to point C and all the way through the alphabet and then just keep going after that. So we'll call it practical perpetual motion for everyone. So perfect perpetual motion, and this is what's I think what people think of is very simple, which is just like I think what people would want is absolute perfection would be let's just call it a motor generator that can just keep going without end, no end. And that means the bearings will never go out, the bearings never need oil, no parts ever wear out. And that's like what would I call that? I'll call that well, I don't even know what to call it. Let's just talk about practical perpetual motion. Practical perpetual motion would be where we have a motor generator, but the bearings do go out. We have to change the bearings, and it might need some maintenance. And that's what is a more popular term when people use perpetual motion. That's what they're more referring to. Like everyone knows the bearings are going to go out eventually, maybe after a few million miles, but that they will go out eventually. But how can we go further with our electrical devices? Whether it be an electric bike, electric go-kart, a moped, a scooter, something that's been converted over to electric, or even an automobile that's been converted to electric or that already is electric. And then you want to convert it maybe to a different circuit, right? Because it might have to be completely rewired to use, like how do we integrate a perpetual motion generator, if I call it that, for the moment, into a new electric automobile, right? That could be a challenge, because the entire automobile is kind of designed to be charged by a charging station, and everything is kind of designed that way. It's kind of like with the automobile. There's a lot of inventions that reduce the exhaust emissions so much on a gasoline-powered automobile that they would actually fail the smog test when they were using the exhaust pipe. When they were reading the exhaust emissions, because the exhaust emissions those cars are designed to pollute a little bit, right? We could call it a little bit, but they're designed to make pollution. If they're not polluting, it'll actually fail the smog test, because the machine is not programmed to consider that a car can have a technology on it that makes it just not pollute, or even actually cleans the air, right? If we think of the GEAT fuel processor, Global Environmental Energy Technology by Paul Pantone, and many others that have similar patents of fuel reformers. And Paul Pantone's system is not just a fuel reformer; it does many more things than that. It's a particle accelerator. It's a plasma generator. I'm not sure that's the correct words to use, but there's many words that can be used to describe Paul Pantone's invention. But looking back at perpetual motion, we have this so let me think for a minute. Paul Pantone, particle accelerator, electrostatic magnetic resonance. It does so many things. Okay, so, and as far as I understand, it's not harmful, because we're always going to find information that makes something good sound bad. As far as I know, the GEAT fuel processor is not harmful to humans or life. It can help us. It's a global environmental energy technology, and it is one of many solutions that are available to everyone to build their own version and to and to actually continue to advance the discoveries. Because when you work with that technology, you learn a lot. It teaches you a lot of things about our universe. So if we have a perpetual motion generator motor, let's think about, I'm gonna think about with you, I'm gonna share my thoughts with you on what I'll call practical perpetual motion for everyone. So practical perpetual motion for everyone, it's going to be a circuit where we have, I'm going to use batteries today, okay? So we'll use batteries. And we'll say that these two batteries are wired in series, right? Which series is, let's say, plus, minus, plus, minus, plus, minus, plus, minus. So series is, and please confirm this for yourself, but I think that's where we connect one of the positives to one of the negatives. And then we take the negative from one battery and the positive from the other battery, and that gives us the added voltage of the two batteries. So if they're both 12 volts, we'll have 24 volts now, right here. Okay, we'll have 24 volts. And I've done experiments with this with different voltages, like higher voltages and lower voltages. So this up here, this is separate. This is our perfect perpetual motion that nothing ever goes wrong with it. Now we're going to look at this as a perpetual motion machine that's practical, easy for anyone to do, and but you do have to rotate the batteries, right? We have to rewire it each time, and you know, in real life, yes, the bearings on the motors and everything, things are going to wear out. It's the world we know, okay? But we can use the word perpetual motion because I think, in my experience, when people are looking for a perpetual motion machine, they're not looking for absolute perfection. They're looking for something practical, and I don't know if we call it realistic, but something, yes, realistic, something that we can actually, like John Bedini would say, how can we take things from our house? What can we do with the things that are here at our house, at our homes? What can we do with the electronics, the circuits available to us, what we already have, and what's available at the hardware store, things we can buy anywhere, right? Because everyone says, of course, perpetual motion exists, but the materials are so expensive and so hard to get and so hard to find. And I thought to myself, but what about the engineer's mantra? There's always another way. And it means that if it can be done in a difficult, complex way, it can also be done other ways. So today we're going to talk about one way of many, one way that I'm familiar with of a simple perpetual motion machine. And that what that means is we can just keep going and keep going, but we do have to switch the batteries around each time. So now, and this is going to be wired in parallel. So these are two 12-volt batteries. These are two 12-volt batteries, but now we have the negative connected to the negative, right? And the positive connected to the positive. And so that's going to be still 12 volts. It'll still be 12 volts total. Whereas this one in series is going to be 24 volts. So now I'm going to connect the negative of this set of batteries to the negative of this set of batteries. And then the positive right here, this positive, which is a 24 volt positive, right? Notice that this number is higher than that number. That's what's needed for this to work. And I imagine like a water wheel. When there's more water on one side or more pressure and it wants to equal out, right? That's what happens when we have this. Because no energy is lost, so we're not losing any water. We're not losing any energy. The energy just flows from these batteries over to these batteries. So what we're going to do here is put in this wire, we'll call this splitting the positive, right? One wire technology, we'll call it one wire technology. In this wire, this is a perpetual motion machine right here. It's perpetual motion for everyone. But yes, we do have to change bearings. Just like we know motors and generators to work, what's changed is the energy. Just the only thing where I'm calling perpetual motion is that we can perpetually move the energy from one set of batteries to the other. And don't forget, this whole circuit exists in an environment that is energy rich. There's energy all around us. And I'm still learning and studying how to understand and relate to that energy that's all around us, because that energy does interact with the circuit, and it makes this circuit possible. It makes all circuits possible. Okay? Thomas Bearden was teaching us that all circuits are perpetual motion circuits. I'm using my own words, but this is what I understand him to be saying. All circuits have the potential to be a perpetual motion circuit. But we have to not short circuit the circuit. So how can we change the circuit? How can we first understand the circuit, or maybe first change it and see it work? That would work too. But my thoughts are, how do I understand the theory of the circuit so that I can know what's happening, and then I can start to visualize how I can make changes to existing circuits so that they will run more efficiently, right? So here we're going to put a motor. I'll put one motor, and this motor is going to be a very powerful motor, okay? So I'm going to put, when I say very powerful, it's just going to be something that could run a lot of generators. That's what I'm thinking of right now, or just a big generator. So right now we're going to have this will be a brushed motor, but it can also be, this is something that could be experimented with. There's many different things that could be done here. But let's begin. I'll just begin with something very simple, and I'll call it a brushed motor. So this will be a brushed motor with 2 wires, right? It'll have 2 wires. So it'll have a plus and a minus. And this positive wire is going to go into this plus, and then the minus will go, where will the minus go to complete the circuit? Where do you think it goes? The negative here is already connected to the negative, right? So to complete the circuit, we're going to take this minus and go to the plus. But how can this motor that needs a plus and a minus to run, how can it run off of a plus and a plus? It does. Okay, this is our perpetual motion machine right here, a real one. So even people that don't study particle physics and only study electrodynamics can also practice this. And the challenge, the personal challenge, is not to do this circuit and if it doesn't work, to give up. The personal challenge is to think creatively once you know the theory. And this is the theory. I'm sharing it with you right now. It's been shared by hundreds of other experimenters and scientists and theoretical engineers and mechanical engineers. But I'm sharing my own very simple words, because a lot of times the words are very complicated to understand for me, and I'm going to try to say it in simple words. I'm trying to help myself understand this, and I'm sharing it with you. That's what I'm doing right now. I'm working through this in my own thoughts. I thought to myself, this is a perpetual motion machine for all practical purposes. When I say it that way, all practical purposes, right? Not the perfect perpetual motion machine where we just have one generator that just keeps running. It runs by itself, right? Like a magnet motor that just keeps spinning by itself, right? But those are complicated. I'm saying they're complicated because I haven't done it yet. I haven't achieved that yet. And everyone that's achieved great achievements, well, most people say once they understand it, it's simple, right? But getting there can be hard. So all of us that are still struggling to understand something that's simple for someone that's achieved it already, I'm trying to think, how can I think about this in a simple way? Because I understand this, I've experimented with this, and it works very well. And then you could experiment with your own, what I'll call practical perpetual motion for everyone. And like I said again, and I'll keep repeating it, the motors and generators work as we understand them to work, except we're wiring it a little differently. And we do understand that, yes, the motors and generators will need maintenance as we understand them to need them. What's different here is that the energy is going to last longer and can last without end depending on how we connect it, right? So here we'll connect the generator to this. Okay, so this is a motor, right? This is just a brushed motor, and it's going to be a pretty good size brushed motor because we want enough power to turn a generator here. And this is the generator. And this generator can be a brushless generator. We could also use gears here to make this spin faster, right? So that's going to take more power from this motor. But what happens in this kind of circuit is the more power this motor takes to spin, is the faster these batteries charge. So these batteries charge, right, because the energy is moving from the high voltage to the low voltage, right? So these batteries charge at the rate, which is the rate of running this motor, right? So this motor takes 100 watts to turn, or if it takes 500 watts to turn. If it takes 500 watts to turn this motor, then we're charging these batteries at 500 watts. And this can be many, many 12-volt batteries, right? We could have like 20 12-volt batteries here. And this can be many batteries over here. And they could be wired in series and parallel, right? This is the personal experimentation part, right? Where we can use our imaginations to personalize this, right? So if we're using lithium on this side, we have to be very careful that we don't overcharge the batteries with too much. We don't want them getting too hot, or we don't want the voltage going too high, right? So today we're going to talk about lead acid. We're using lead acid on both sides, but I have experimented with lithium, and I'm always careful to not let the batteries overheat, and to also not let them overcharge. Those are very important things, and to never leave this kind of experiment unattended. Never, never, never. You're always there watching it, and having meters and everything available to you, all the tools that keep a person safe. So this is the generator, right? So this is a motor, and we'll call this a generator. Okay, we also know that generators don't make energy, but they move energy from the coils, which is the coils interact with the environment and pump that energy into our circuits, right? So we'll call this a generator though for this video, and this can also be a motor that has 3 wires, right? It could be a 3-wired brushless motor that goes into a full wave bridge rectifier that has a 3-wire input and the 2-wire output, which is the positive and negative, and that can go to the batteries. Or this can be a brushed motor, but I would think that these are very efficient. This is just a lawnmower motor, very, very efficient. Look how nice this design is. This was a Ryobi. It had a 21-inch blade. It had 2 blades, a lot of power there, and it was a 40 volt. It's from a 40 volt lawnmower. A lot of electric lawnmowers have really powerful motors in them. So this is from a Ryobi lawnmower, and I have motors from all different kinds of lawnmowers. And this has 3 wires, as you can see here. There's 3 connections. And then I had purchased some bridge rectifiers, and I'll see if I can find one to show you. Here's one here. This was purchased on Amazon, but they're available at electronic stores. I hope you can see that, because it's like, hopefully you can see that. So this is the input here. Those 3 wires that we just saw would go here, one here, one here, one here, and then output is plus and minus, and that would go to the batteries. So that would go to the batteries. So then in this case, we'll have 3 wires coming out, and then I'll have it going to a full wave bridge rectifier. So I'll have that going here, here, and here. And then, and this also could be set up where we have many of the generators lined up next to each other. If we have gears here in a system running many generators, right? And also spinning them faster as well, with pulleys and different things that can allow that. So this is the part where one can just use one's imagination. So we're going to have a plus and a minus, and then those connections, the plus can go to the plus, and then the minus can go to the minus. This is a thought. This is kind of like a thought experiment. I've done experiments with circuits like this, with AA batteries, with deep cycle 12 volt batteries, and with lithium batteries. I've done many experiments and many variations of this, but this is a simple perpetual motion for every one circuit, because what happens is all of our energy from these batteries it's not being used by this. Well, yeah, it's not. This motor's not consuming it. The energy is just flowing to these batteries. All the energy flows to these batteries at the rate of spinning this motor, at the rate of powering this motor. But energy's not lost in this kind of circuit. Okay, so we're sharing this energy with these batteries at the rate of spinning this motor. This negative wire does not, it's going over this generator, but it's not interacting with that generator. It's just, everything's kind of overlapping here. But this negative wire goes directly over to the negative on this set of batteries. So this is a simple perpetual motion for everyone circuit, and I look forward to watching your videos on circuits, on your versions of this, and I guess you can call it simple perpetual motion for everyone, and then I'll look for your videos. Have a great day.